Chapter 12. The Closet. That night was special for Jiro and Ohama as well. The next morning found him hanging on Ohama wherever she went, even to the toilet. When she started sweeping the ground floor, Jiro brought a broom from nowhere. "They're like a hen and a chick, aren't they?" said Grandmother Masaki, smiling. Soon after lunch, Naokichi came with the New Year present from the Hondas. Ohama wanted to steal out of the back door because she was seen, but it was impossible because Jiro was clinging to her. "Oh, it's you, Ohama-san," he said, giggling at her, and sat down on the step to the kitchen. "Ah, yes, I had some business, she said, "but I little dreamed I could meet Master Jiro." She said so to cover herself while Jiro was holding her sleeve. "Did you come here today, Ohama-san?" said Naokichi. "No, yesterday, in fact," she said. "I stayed overnight as I was extorted to by the Masakis. But please keep it a secret from Hondas." "All right," said Naokichi to assure Ohama, but she felt a little uneasy because he made it so lightly. Ohama knew that it would be known sooner or later, though. "Do you have to go back soon, Naokichi?" said Ohama. "Of course, I'm awfully busy today." "Then will you take Master back home?" she said. "He'd better go home today. It's a pity to send him back by himself again, isn't it?" "Yes, of course I will," he said. "I've been asked to do so by the mistress too, and Grandmother is grumbling a lot." "About Master Jiro, you mean?" said Ohama. "Sure," he said. "She said she knows no words to apologize when she leaves Jiro-chan with the Masakis for more than 2 days during such a busy season." "Really? What the sense of obligation?" "Nothing like that, he said. "She's just envious of Jiro-chan being treated so kindly here." "Grandmother envies Master? No, she wouldn't," said Ohama. "But she does," said Naokichi. "She's always complaining at table that they indulge the children at Masaki's." "Isn't it Grandmother herself that is indulging Kyo-san like that?" "You're right," he said. "She's also afraid that Jiro-chan may tell everything about the Hondas here. She thinks him a liar, so she worries he'll reveal something bad to them." "What a disgusting old woman," she said. "By the way, how's his father? Isn't he hard on Jiro-chan?" "No, he isn't. I know that. But he sent Master on this errand all by himself." "That's true," he said. "But he isn't so hard on Jiro-chan. He's a different type of person from Grandmother and the mistress, or the mistress." "What do you mean by that?" said Ohama. "He's a man of character. He loves Jiro-chan but never indulges him." "You make me feel a little easier, Naokichi," said Ohama. She was not completely satisfied, but was glad in a way. As she wanted to hear more from him, she decided to go back with him. Greeting the Masakis, they were about to leave when they noticed that Jiro was not to be seen. "Jiro-chan, Master!" Ohama and Naokichi cried for him in turn. Soon the Masakis' children came out of the wax shed, but Jiro was not among them either. For some time it was only Ohama and Naokichi that were looking for him. Wherever they looked, he was not found. Soon they were joined by more people, and every possible place was searched. The granary where the children played hide and seek, the wax seed storehouse, the barn, the toilet, and even under the elevated floor. All their efforts ended in vain. The searchers were tired, Some of them stood on the ground and others squatted before the kitchen range. It was read in every face, however, that there was nothing to worry about. It was only Ohama who was in an uneasy mood. She went in and out of the back door frequently. There was a big pond behind the house where dried lotus leaves were floating to and fro from with the chilly wind of the end of the year. Ohama had a horrible thought for a moment, but wouldn't let it out. "Maybe he has gone back by himself," said Naokichi, sitting at the range with a long bamboo pipe in his mouth. "Yes, I think I saw Jiro-chan going out when you were talking," said the female worker with a towel tied around her head. Her words sounded like a key to solving their problem. Grandfather Masaki was listening to their conversation silently as he sat by himself in the dining room. He said to Naokichi, "Anyway, you must go back. We'll look for him again and let's gather here by sunset to report whether he has been found out or not. By the way, Ohama, how about staying with us another night?" "Thank you, sir," she said after a moment of thought, "but I think I'll go back too. I have something in mind." "I don't suppose he has fled to your house again," said grandfather. "I hope not, but," said Ohama, and in a haste bade goodbye to them. She left the house with Naokichi. Soon another search was made at 3 different places, but there was no good news. When the sun had set, Ohama appeared at the Masakis again. Toward 9 o'clock, Shunsuke, Otami, and grandmother Honda arrived. As soon as she entered the hall, Otami gave a sharp look to Ohama. "This is the result of sending such a small child on an errand," said grandmother Honda. "I'm awfully sorry to you all and feel ashamed that I won't be able to look the world in the face again." Shunsuke sat down before grandfather Masaki with an unusually serious face. Dear reader, let us leave the adults as they are and trace our hero, shall we? In fact, he did not go to such a dangerous place as they feared. Going out the front door, he stepped into a moldy space between the main house and a whitewashed warehouse. Then he walked to the back of the artificial mound of the garden. As he was exposed to the chilly wind, Jiro looked at the drawing room for some time. Nobody was seen, so he ventured to step onto the veranda. He went across the drawing room into the adjoining room and softly opened the door of the closet, in which there was some bedding for guests. He went in. The touch of the silk bedding was not very comfortable at first because it was cold. Besides, when his chapped limbs touched it, a rustling sound arose which made him so scared. Then he needed to slide the door back so that he could not be seen. A difficult work indeed. He had to do it without making a noise. After several attempts, Jiro managed to close it. He took every care not to stir himself, but at the same time listened to the sound outside. Once in a while, loud and noisy cries were heard, but Jiro could not get any idea what they were talking about. By and by, his eyes grew accustomed to the dimness inside the closet, and he could see on the wall a fan-shaped pattern formed by a ray of light leaking in from the crack between the sliding doors. As he looked at it, it changed into the shape of the national flag of the rising sun, then that of blue waves, and then a gourd or dragon. He tried getting every other image that he could make out. With great effort, Jiro remembered a lot of pictures he had ever seen painted on the back of Japanese hand fans. Lying in the closet, he thought of Naokichi. Jiro vividly remembered pinching his earlobes on his shoulders. Naokichi always comes to fetch me back, so I don't like him, he said to himself. Otherwise, I'd like him. Has he gone home yet? How about Ohama? What shall I do if she has gone too? In the meantime, the bedding became warmer and warmer till he felt as if he were being lifted high up in the sky. Soon he fell fast asleep. It was a couple of hours before he awoke. The fan-shaped pattern was not to be seen anymore. All was dark. Where in the world he was, he wondered. He turned over and his feet touched the door, but he could not remember where he was. Dear reader, can you guess what actually aroused the boy? It was nothing but an acute sense of the call of nature. He had to know where he was as soon as possible. Making turns quietly in the dark, he groped about the place with his hands. When he touched the silk bedding, it made a rustling sound. Instantly his memory was brought back. He regained it, but it meant an even harder time for him. He wanted to go out but could not make it, because he had slipped in that place by himself. However strongly he desired to pass water, he had to stay there. The pain in his bladder grew more and more acute. He thought of doing the same as he did at his brother's side, but the bedclothes looked too costly to do so. Besides, it was not in his house. He was old enough to know that. Clenching his teeth fast, Jiro endured it between the call of nature and that of conscience. A minute passed, and so did another. Then, quite unexpectedly, the solution was found. How foolish what I was, he said to himself. Now Kichi ought to have gone already. I don't have to worry about being taken away by him. Springing out of the bed, he opened the door of the closet. It was pitch dark outside, but he walked very carefully toward what he thought to be the veranda, extending his hands forward. It was so cold, and his desire became very strong. All of a sudden he stumbled over something, lost his balance, and fell forward. The next moment he heard something broken with a great sound. He felt an acute pain all over, as he had been thrust into thorny bushes. The little boy screamed. Very soon he was surrounded by all the family members. "It's him!" someone cried. "Dear me, master," said Ohama. "Look, he's injured. Quick! Don't treat him roughly. Be careful. Lift him up softly." Oh my goodness! Jiro had broken through several wooden frames of the sliding door by plunging into it. Haven't the wooden frames stuck into his eyes? His eyes are all right, but he has a big cut on the wrist. It was fortunate for him not to have run into the glass. "Send for the doctor at once," said Grandfather Masaki. Jiro had his forehead and wrist bandaged with a cotton cloth. "Why, his clothes are wet. What's the matter?" said Ohama as she carried him in her arms onto the drawing room. "Is that so?" said Shunsuke. "I didn't notice it. Probably he passed it when he fell down. Ha ha ha." His father was smiling to Jiro as if it was nothing at all. The others laughed too, but poor Jiro was sobbing. It was only Otami that was in a sulky mood. She looked back at her husband with a frown. Jiro had his clothes changed for Tetsuo's and was gently made to lie on the mattress. Soon the doctor came to treat him and said, "The wound on his wrist isn't so bad, but a big scar might remain there because a splinter from the door frame stuck in." The doctor returned about midnight. Shunsuke asked the Masakis if he could stay that night. Ohama was spying at the mistress's face, but as she was urged to stay by Grandfather Masaki, she finally accepted his offer. "I'm awfully sorry to go back leaving Jiro to you," said Grandmother Honda tediously. "If all of us stay here, it will put you to much trouble." Eventually, Otami went back with her. Jiro couldn't sleep well for that aching wound, but it was a very happy night for him. His father lay beside him, and Ohama kept vigil, sitting at his side all the night.